Hey everyone, this is Alam. Last time we talked about can a human being be controlled? To be honest, it was a hell of an episode where me and my friend both discussed about how can a human being be controlled, or can even a human being be controlled. I mean, if you're also like, who am I? What I do is also. Uh, I have already mentioned that in my previous episode of the podcast. This is going to be the second one, and we're going to be dwelling on a very important thing that actually the topic was picked by my friend Shad, and I don't think he's going to be able to join today. So, the second topic he picked was responsibilities, which I think is a very good topic, to be honest, in my scenario. What does responsibility mean? Like, let's move on from the very start actually. A person who is like, as soon as you are born, that's what he said. I asked him, and that's what he said, that we're going to discuss it today. So the responsibilities as you wake up, or I add, as you're born, by the time you are born, your parents puts responsibilities on you. For example, you have to brush your teeth. For example, you have to maintain a hygiene. For example, you have to do certain kind of stuff. Maybe that would be going to school, maybe maintaining a good grade, maybe going to gym, being an athlete. Maybe there can be a thousands of scenario actually. And by the time you grow up, for example, when you are a teen, you have to be responsible about your life. You have to be responsible in a way. You have to take into account of the scenarios that include other people. What are your responsibilities towards your mother? What are your responsibilities towards your father? What are your responsibilities towards your family? And quite honestly, there are like thousands of responsibilities from the day you are born to the day you are die, or the day you are dead. What I think a responsibility is, it's like your brain tricking you into something that is meaningful. For example, if we were living in a perfectly ideal scenario where you are the only person living on the earth, do you think there would be any responsibilities? I mean, I would like to debate this point, but to my knowledge, I can't think of any responsibilities if you were the only single person. You are allowed to be reckless. You'll be wasting resources. You'll be doing so many things, but why would you care? What the hell? So responsibilities are also directly or indirectly associated with the relationship. Maybe that relationship would be for a citizen to his country. Maybe the other responsibility would be for a son to his parents, to a husband to his wife, to a wife to his husband, to a son, to a mother to his son, to a father to his daughter or son, to his child in general. There are thousands of responsibilities from the day you are born to the day you are dead. And I think the responsibilities define a person. Quite honestly, how a person is, like, let's say, is responsible, how a person is, like, you can look at my phrasings right now, like how I phrase my words, like responsibilities. As soon as you heard that person is responsible, you think that that person is very competent in what he does, and that person is reliable to some extent, right? So that's what I think. Like, responsibility, or the word responsible, when you hear that word, you look at the person and you say, that person might be doing something good with his life just because he's responsible. Now I think, now I would like to dwell on the point. But to be honest, like, I don't know what I'm gonna uh, speak in this solo podcast, to be honest. It's just like two people talk, so it's better of how we talk. But this time, I don't know what I'm gonna talk, so I'm just making points about responsibility and how a person has to be responsible, and how every action has some kind of, maybe that may be good or maybe that be bad, consequences. In this scenario, let's say, uh, the best point to dwell on the responsibility is what I think is, I would like to debate anyone who comments that responsibility is related to the amount of money you earn, or the responsibility is related to the person you become. Uh, I think everyone knows about Jordan B. Peterson from the Peterson Academy, or the 12 Rules of Life, or something like that. I mean, I don't agree with him on most of the points, but he said once in a scenario that if you are offered a position of the greatest responsibility, always accept that. Because the greater the responsibility, the greater is the chance for you to find the meaning in your life. Let's say, also, like, I would like to quote Mahatma Gandhi here. I might be unsure with my quote references, but that's what I heard, that a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. Now, I would like to point out here a very important point, that is, what does it mean by life lived for others? What does it actually mean, actually, if you think about it? It means your responsibility towards the society, your responsibility towards your parents, your responsibility towards a stranger. You might be wondering that, is there any responsibilities of you involving a stranger? Yes, there is. I think there are quite of them. Like, let's say, for example, you walk on a road and you come across a stranger. I think it is your responsibility to say peace be unto you, or to say hi to him in a scenario, because that's how we thrive as a society. If you don't, as human, you all know that it's a social animal, and if you don't consider yourself social, and you are sitting on a place, or you are walking and you find someone, might be that person might be hoping for something, that person might be having a bad day, and you just said hi to them. So I think that's a form of responsibility that you owe towards a stranger. Let's say there is a rock in the middle of the road. I think you should remove that rock, because that is a responsibility you owe towards a stranger who might hit and fall and get injured. You just saved an injury. I think it is your responsibility towards the animal. For example, you see right now in Winnipeg, it's quite hot. So it is our responsibility, which unfortunately I'm not fulfilling, but I just recognize that birds and deers and stuff like that, or animals like that, might be thirsty or hungry in this kind of weather. They have actually nowhere to go. Now, if you don't feed them something, like, they might die, or they might suffer thirst, or they might suffer some kind of scenario. Why would you want to wish towards that to someone? So it is your responsibility to put water bowl, or maybe bird feeders or stuff like that, so you can help the animals. Now, what is your responsibility towards yourself? That's actually the very fun point to delve into. For the moment, I want you all to think about, what is your responsibility towards yourself? What I think is, you have to be accountable with yourself. You have to be accountable with your money. You have to be accountable with your time. You have to do with justice with your time. For example, how many people are like me and my friend, or some other people who watches movies or watches reels all day long, if you think about it. Are they or am I being just towards my time? Am I being just towards the society? Because if I grow as a person, I make the whole society grow. But if I'm not doing that, if I am in a scenario where I'm just thinking about myself in this scenario, like if I think of my own pleasure, what I like, then I can never be able to fulfill what the utmost level of responsibilities. I would never be able to achieve the utmost level in my life because I'm not responsible. I'm not responsible towards myself. I don't have, I think I don't have obligations towards myself actually. When you think about it, like you owe something to someone, you owe responsibility to strangers, you owe responsibility towards your spouse, you owe responsibility towards your friends, you owe responsibility towards everyone. But I think the most important responsibility you can owe is towards yourself. If you think about it, how are you going to live your life? It depends on how responsible you are towards yourself. Every time you act on a desire, every time you act on something that is going to sabotage your future, for example, every time you commit that you're going to die, every time you commit you want to stop watching porn, every time you commit to something, whatever that may be for you, and you break it, and you think it does not have a consequence, but it does. It is sabotaging your life to some extent, depending on the severity of the things you do. The among them all, the most severe is wasting your time. I think if you're with a person, let's say if you have a partner who does not love you, or who cheats on you, or who does something that is not good towards you as a person, are you wasting your time towards them? Yes, it's same as watching reels, it's same as watching porn, it's same as doing whatever the fuck you are doing. If you are wasting time on someone who does not deserve your time, then it's gonna create a problem. It is you being not just toward yourself. I mean, just you do not serve justice towards yourself. You are not responsible in this scenario towards yourself. There are so many things I can dwell on the responsibility of oneself towards one. And the most important thing that I would like to leave in a conclusion is wasting your time, procrastinating, watching porn, smoking, drinking, a thousand things. Maybe you committed to reading a book, you didn't. Now you are just irresponsible towards yourself. Everybody thinks about every other person, like, oh, if I don't work, my family is going to starve to death. If I don't do this, my mother is going to starve. If I don't do this, people who are relying on me are going to go nuts. So now, what is the you never think about what is going on with yourself actually, if you think about it. Like, have you ever thought doing anything, have you ever thought on the beforehand that what does it gonna do to your life? Be honest, have you ever thought? Because I never do that. And honestly, we owe every responsibility towards ourselves. Maybe that may be mental health, maybe that may be physical health, it may be anything. We do owe the responsibility towards ourselves. And I think that responsibility, the more you be responsible, the more areas you are irresponsible with yourself, the more you are responsible with others, and the more you are going to find the meaning of your life. That means the more you're going to be at peace at the end of the day. I'm not sure that you're going to make a lot of money. I'm uncertain about that. Nobody can be sure. But you're going to be at the peace at the end of the day, knowing that you have fulfilled all of your duties that was obliged to you. What is your responsibility towards your mother? In my case, I was raised alone. My mother's side and my mother especially raised me because my father died when I was a day old. And if you think about it, she gave me all of the things that can be given to a human being. She never deprived me of anything. She never said anything. She never disagreed with my judgment. She always made me figure out the stuff. Now, as a person, I don't think about it enough, but like, when you think on this, you realize that what responsibility you owe towards her as a person, as a son. Is it my She gave her whole life for me to for me so I can study, so I can eat, so I can sleep properly in a good bed. But what have I done in return? Am I being responsible towards her? Am I taking good care of her? Am I calling her every day? I don't know. No, I actually know. The answer is no. Why is it no? Because we don't think about it enough, that what they have done. It's just a matter of your thinking, what do you think on day-to-day basis. But you don't even consider yourself that this thing is going to get affected in future. What if Just imagine for once, like, what is the responsibility towards her? So I want you to go to your mother, or maybe don't go to your mother, or just if you're a person like me who has hard time talking with her mother, I think go think about it for once, that if she was a child, and here I mean both mother and father, but just I can't relate with the father, so I'm just choosing mother, but it applies in general. Think about it. Think about your mother. What would she be like in childhood? What did she want to do? Does she wanted to spend all of the money on one son and like barely able to live her life? Does she wanted to work her ass off, wake up every morning and go to work and feed me? I mean, here in Canada and in Western countries, it does happen. But back home, it's more of a man is the provider. So she might have not expected it. Though she was the best in fulfilling her duties towards me, well and beyond, I would add. It wasn't just like normal, it was well and beyond. She did an excellent job on that. Do I Have I paid her back? I don't think so. Am I being responsible towards her? Just like a childhood question, what does she wanted in the childhood? Is it my responsibility to fulfill it? Hell yeah. It is my responsibility, or it is any person's responsibility to fulfill the dream of someone who fulfilled your dream. There are people who might disagree with me. They said, because you have a mother, or you have a son or a daughter, parents are responsible for their well-being. Yeah, they are responsible for their well-being, but I don't think it's their responsibility to go well and beyond. For example, study can also happen at a community college. They didn't have to send me to an Ivy League. I can eat rice and milk every day, or I can eat some kind of food every day, every single day. I don't have to have variety to survive. But she gave me all of it, everything. So now it is my responsibility. What is your responsibility towards the community? Maybe what is your responsibility towards the country? As bizarre as it sounds, your responsibility towards a country is in paying taxes. That is funny actually, because I don't believe in paying full taxes. I might, if I'm earning a lot of money, I might cut here and there. But I think there is a fixed amount that everyone has to pay in order to survive, because now It is just garbage. They are charging you 50% of your total income, and then what do you make? You buy something, you pay sales tax on that, then you pay maintenance tax, you pay GST, HST, PST, a thousand kinds of taxes on one single thing, federal tax, provincial tax. I think there should be some limit, but whatever country you are living in, if you don't like to pay their taxes, move somewhere else. Because in order to make a community and in order to make a good living place, you have to pay taxes, or you have to pay whatever the country is obliged you to pay. Now there might be a certain scenarios where country don't pay as much as, like, don't charge taxes, for example Saudi or any other Gulf countries. But you have to take into account that they everything is owned by the king there, everything is owned by government, so there is no way you can get a share of oil. They might be making billions, and the tax they're gonna accumulate if they were to charge tax was just 100 on a billion. That does not make sense, so they won't collect it, and they would make everyone feel good that they are not collecting it, and that's how they would attract the startups, they would attract the other people. But let's not dwell onto taxes for now. I think that is your responsibility. I think cleaning, I think being having a civic sense, for example, having a good understand of privacy of others, having a good understanding of your surroundings, having a good understanding of where you are, having a good understanding of how not to do some things, or how things are going to affect other people especially, who are just passerbys, who are just in community. For example, it is your responsibility towards the community to open a business. Now how would you say that it is not my fucking responsibility to open a business? But I think it is. That's how you will provide to the community. You would provide the employment to people who are there in the community, who can thrive on you, whom you can be responsible for, you to having jobs. Like, you can be responsible for other people having jobs. Because let's be honest, times are tough, and it's very hard to make a living. And I don't know why I'm talking in like philosophical mode, or like not happy mode, but I think this topic is like that. This topic is more of thinking rather than doing, because it's very hard to connect the dots. Your brain can easily trick you into something that you think it's not related to responsibility, but it actually is. It is actually related to responsibilities. What is your responsibility towards your spouse? Be good to them, be generous. That is not something that is, I consider, far and beyond, but that is the responsibility. Your responsibility as a man is to take care of your wife, maybe feed her good food, clothe her, be kind to her, a thousand things. Same as a woman. I think people might disagree on this with me, that I think men and women are same. I don't think men and women are same. Each person has different responsibility towards the other. And I think these are all the points that I discussed alone myself in a podcast. And I don't think any more thing is to add it to this. There can be a thousand things where we can include and say, this is the point that you have to be responsible. This is the point where you have to be responsible. You have to be responsible towards this, that. There can be a thousand things about that. But I think I made my point of how you can be a responsible person and turn your life around. How everything is interlinked to how you think of your responsibilities. How can you be responsible? Now the very good question comes. You can think about it. I mean, think about what you owe, the obligation towards the other people, and accept the maximum responsibility. You can learn from other people's experiences, from their pain, from their pleasures. What are they going through in their life? How is their life going? Then you would realize a point that no, if I am being eating twice a day, it is my responsibility to feed the other person who isn't eating for 2 days. A thousand things are responsibilities. Might I might be going into extremes here that this is your responsibility, but this is your responsibility, this is your responsibility. One might looking at my video and say these are not the responsibilities, these are far and beyond. Maybe that is the case. I'm not going to deny that, but I believe the more responsible you are, the more responsibilities you accept, the more responsibilities you accept, the more competent you becomes, the more competent you become, the more good of a life you find, the more peaceful you are with yourself and how your life turns out. I think by that I would conclude this talks about responsibilities. If anyone has any doubts, or I would love to have one-on-one conversation with anyone who has conflict with my ideas. Maybe I can learn from them, maybe they can learn from me, maybe we'll arrive at a point where we both can agree. I'm looking towards it. Thank you for watching this. This was more of a weird podcast where I was the only one talking. Monocast. It was a monocast actually. And only one talking, and the feeling was a bit emotional. It wasn't as fun to talk about this, but that's what the responsibility is. You have to think about connecting the dots. You have to think about the other person's pain in order to be responsible towards them. If you're responsible towards your life, you have to think of consequences if you are not. You have to think about what does another person feels by what you say. There are so many things. I don't do that often. I'm not a person who thinks a lot before acting. But I think there is a room for improvement, right? By that, I would like to conclude my talks. We will see you guys later. Thank you.